Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, staring at the strange signal on his screen. The message was weak and broken, coming from somewhere near the edge of human space. His ship had been exploring empty star systems for 3 months, looking for new planets that humans could live on. This was the first sign of life they had found. Can you clean up that signal, Amy? Jake asked his science officer. Lieutenant Amy Foster worked at her station, her fingers dancing over the controls. She was the best at understanding alien languages and biology on the ship. After a few minutes, she looked up with worry in her eyes. Captain, it's a distress call. Multiple species all asking for help. They're on something called Kepler Station. Jake rounded. He had never heard of Kepler Station, and it wasn't on any of their maps. Where is it? About 6 hours away at full speed. It's on an asteroid that's slowly falling apart. Sir, there are hundreds of life signs there, but their power is failing. The captain thought for a moment. Admiral Ben Parker had told him to avoid contact with alien species unless it was absolutely necessary. Earth's government was trying to stay neutral in galactic politics. Getting involved with alien refugees could cause problems, but Jake had joined the space service to help people, not to ignore them when they were dying. Set course for Kepler Station, maximum speed. The New Horizon turned toward the distress signal and jumped to faster than light travel. Jake spent the journey reading reports about the galactic situation. The Galactic Council controlled most of known space. They decided which species could be members and which ones had to leave. Recently, they had been kicking out more and more species for different reasons. When they arrived at Kepler Station, Jake was shocked by what he saw. The asteroid was barely holding together. Pieces of metal and rock had been welded together to make shelters, but everything looked ready to fall apart. Hundreds of small ships floated nearby, most of them damaged. My God, Amy whispered, how are they even alive in there? The main view screen showed the refugees more clearly. Most of them looked like they lived in water. They had smooth blue-green skin and large eyes. They moved slowly, like they were very tired and weak. Captain said, communications Officer Pete Collins, we're getting a message from the station. Put it through. The face that appeared on screen was clearly not human, but Jake could see intelligence and desperation in its large dark eyes. When it spoke, the ship's computer translated its words. Human ship, please help us. We are the Zaperians of the ocean world. Aquatica, the Galactic Council has expelled us from civilized space. We have nowhere to go. Our children are dying. Jake felt his heart sink. These people had been thrown out of their homes and left to die in space. What did you do wrong? He asked. The alien looked confused. Wrong? We did nothing wrong. The council said our technology was too simple. They said we wasted resources by living in harmony with our planet instead of mining it completely. They took our world and gave it to a mining company. We are the last of our people. Amy leaned close to Jake and whispered, Captain, I'm reading their biology. These beings can clean water and air naturally. Their bodies filter toxins and create oxygen. That's not primitive technology. That's amazing evolution. Jake nodded. He was starting to understand something important. The Galactic Council wasn't getting rid of species because they were bad or dangerous. They were getting rid of Species that were different, how many of you are there? Jake asked the Zaffiran. 412 adults, 83 children. We also have refugees from other expelled species, the Lumrians who can work with crystal energy, the Vorin who share thoughts as a group, and the Sheik who build with living materials. Jake's mind raced. His ship could hold maybe 50 people safely. There was no way to save them all unless Amy sent a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have a humanitarian emergency and need immediate help, sir, said his first officer, Commander Linda Davis. Admiral Parker specifically said not to get involved with alien politics. This isn't politics, Linda. This is about people dying because they're different. The response from Earth came back quickly. Admiral Parker's face filled the screen and he did not look happy. Morrison, what do you think you're doing? I told you to stay out of galactic affairs, sir. There are children dying out here. These people were kicked out of their homes just for being different from what the Council wants. That's not our problem, Captain. Earth is trying to build good relationships with the Galactic Council. We can't afford to anger them by helping their outcasts. Jake felt anger building in his chest, so we just let innocent people die. That's an order. Morrison, do not interfere. Return to your mission. The communication ended, leaving Jake staring at a black screen behind him. His crew waited to see what he would do. He could follow orders and watch hundreds of beings die, or he could do what he knew was right and probably end his career. He thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was only 8 years old, but she had asked him once why some kids at school were mean to others just because they looked different. He had told her that good people always try to help those who need it, no matter what they look like. Now he had to decide if he really believed that. Jake turned to his crew. I need volunteers. We're going to help these people, even if it means going against orders. Anyone who doesn't want to be part of this can transfer to the shuttle and return to Earth. He waited. Not one person moved. Amy stepped forward. Captain, I've been studying their biology. The Zephyrians alone could help us solve water pollution problems on dozens of human colonies. The other species have abilities we've never seen before. We wouldn't just be saving them. They could help us too. Commander Davis nodded. Sir, you're right. This is about doing what's right. Pete Collins added, my grandfather always said that you judge people by how they treat those who can't help them. These refugees can't help anyone right now, but that doesn't mean they're not worth saving. Jake felt proud of his crew. All right then. Let's get to work. Amy, start working with the refugees to figure out how to transport them safely. Linda, prepare the cargo bays for temporary housing. Pete, send a message to the Zephyrian leader. Tell them we're taking them home. Home, sir? Linda asked. Earth. It's time humanity showed the galaxy that we judge people by who they are, not what species they belong to. Over the next 12 hours, the New Horizon worked with the refugee ships to organize the evacuation. Jake learned more about each species. The Lumrians were beings made of living crystal who could store and focus energy in ways that seemed like magic. V. Horton were gaseous creatures who thought as a group mind, making them incredibly smart when working together. The Chittick looked like insects but could create living buildings that grew and healed themselves. All of them had been thrown out by the Galactic Council for being inefficient or primitive. Jake realized that they weren't inefficient at all, they were just different from what the Council considered normal. As the New Horizon prepared to leave for Earth with its unusual cargo, Jake received another message from the Zahirian leader. Captain Morrison, why are you helping us? Your own leaders told you not to. What do humans gain from this? Jake thought about the question. We gain the chance to do what's right. We gain new friends and new knowledge, but mostly we gain the knowledge that we didn't turn our backs on people who needed help. Zephyrian's large eyes seemed to shine. Perhaps there is hope in this galaxy. After all, as the New Horizon jumped to faster than light speed toward Earth, Jake wondered what would happen when they arrived. Would Earth's government accept the refugees, or would Jake and his crew be arrested for disobeying orders? He decided it didn't matter. Some things were more important than following orders. Some things were worth risking everything for. Behind them, the dying asteroid that had been Kepler's station finally broke apart, scattering debris into empty space. If they had arrived just a few hours later, there would have been no one left to save. Jake Morrison had made his choice. Now he had to hope that humanity would make the right choice too. 6 months had passed since Captain Jake Morrison brought the first refugees to Earth. The planet had changed in ways no one expected. In the city of New Geneva, Zephyrian water gardens cleaned the air while human children played with young aliens who looked nothing like them. The old industrial city of Liberty had become center of crystal technology, where Lumerian beings worked with human engineers to create energy systems that seemed impossible. Commander Tony Blake walked through the halls of the new Refugee Integration Center in Geneva. He had been Morrison's second officer on the New Horizon, but now he led a special team that included members from all the refugee species. His current mission was more important than anything he had done in space. The readings are definitely artificial, said his science officer, Dr. Corinne White, as they studied data from their latest discovery on Titan, one of Saturn's moons. This structure is over 10,000 years old, but it's still working. Tony nodded, looking at the images on his screen. Deep beneath Titan's ice, their sensors had found something that looked like a massive library, but it wasn't built by humans or any species they knew about. The refugee team member, a Vorthon named, went through stars who appeared as a cloud of glowing gas, floated closer to examine the data. The patterns matched the old stories our elders told. Wind through stars, said its voice coming from speakers that translated its gaseous communications. Before the current Galactic Council, there were others, species that valued knowledge over control. Dr. White pulled up more scans. If this is really a library, it might contain information about galactic history that the Council doesn't want people to know. Tony felt excitement building. Ever since the refugees had arrived on Earth, strange things had been happening. The Council had started making threats. They claimed that Earth was becoming dangerous by helping unfit species. But Tony suspected there was more to the story. On Earth, Dr. Susan Wells sat in her office in the United Nations building in New York. As Earth's chief diplomat, she had been dealing with increasingly angry messages from the Galactic Council. Today's message was the worst yet, the holographic image of Ambassador Velter, a tall reptilian being with cold yellow eyes filled the room. Dr. Wells, the Galactic Council, has been very patient with your species. But your actions have gone too far. You are harboring criminals and outcasts. You are disrupting the natural order of galactic civilization. Susan kept her voice calm, though inside she was angry. Ambassador, these people committed no crimes. They were expelled simply for being different. Different is dangerous, Velter hissed. The Council maintains order by ensuring that only efficient, productive species survive. Your Earth is becoming a gathering place for the weak and useless. This cannot continue. What exactly are you demanding? All refugee species must be removed from Earth. Within 30 days, they will be relocated to designated containment areas in the outer galaxy. If you refuse, Earth will face economic sanctions and possible military action. The transmission ended, leaving Susan staring at empty space. She picked up her communication device and called President Helen Murphy in Washington. Helen, we have a problem. The Council is giving us an ultimatum. Meanwhile, on Mars, something amazing was happening. The red planet had been slowly changing into a world where humans could breathe and live without protective suits. The process was supposed to take hundreds of years, but with Zephyrian help, it was happening in months. Engineer Carlos Martinez stood in what used to be a barren valley and watched Zephyrian workers guide water through new channels. The alien beings moved gracefully through the flowing streams, their bodies naturally cleaning and enriching the water as it passed through specially designed pools. I never thought I'd see Mars turn green in my lifetime, Carlos said to his Zephyrian partner, flowing like rivers. The blue-skinned being smiled, showing teeth that looked like small pearls. Your species thinks too much about time. Water finds its way when the path is clear. We simply clear the path. Nearby, Lumrian crystals collected sunlight and converted it into energy that powered the entire terraforming operation. The crystal beings had taught humans how to grow energy storage systems instead of building them. Chidic engineers had created living buildings that expanded as more colonists arrived, and their structures actually improved the soil around them. But the real breakthrough was happening in orbit around Earth. The Vorin Collective had linked with human computer networks, creating a new kind of artificial intelligence that could solve problems faster than any single mind could think. When Commander Blake's team sent their data from Titan back to Earth, this combined intelligence began to uncover secrets that had been hidden for thousands of years. Dr. Lisa Carter, now the director of the Refugee Integration Program, stood before a joint session of human and refugee leaders in Geneva. The room was filled with beings that looked nothing like each other, but they all listened carefully as she spoke. What we've discovered on Titan changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history, she said, displaying the ancient records on a large screen. The current Galactic Council didn't evolve naturally. They took power by force, destroying or expelling any species that might challenge them. Chedic hive speaker, its insect-like head tilted in attention, clicked its mandibles. The old stories speak of this, the time of silence when the song makers were silenced, when through stars swirled in agreement. Our collective memory holds fragments. Species that asked questions were labeled as troublemakers, those with unique Abilities were called threats too. Stability, Dr. Carter nodded. According to these records, over 300 species have been eliminated or expelled over the past 5,000 years, not because they were dangerous but because they were different. The Council maintains power by keeping everyone afraid and divided. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, a human representative spoke up. If this is true, then we're not just helping refugees, we're preserving the diversity that the Council is trying to destroy. That evening, Captain Morrison, now promoted to lead Earth's small defensive fleet, received an urgent communication from his scouts. A large force of Council ships was moving toward the outer edge of the solar system. They weren't coming for a friendly visit. Morrison called an emergency meeting with his senior officers. The conference room on the orbital station above Earth held people who had worked together for only 6 months, but they had become a real team. The Council fleet has 500 ships, Morrison reported. They're from 12 different member species. We have 80 human ships, and whatever refugee vessels are still space-worthy. Commander Blake, recently transferred from the Titan research mission, studied the tactical display. We're outnumbered 6 to 1. In a straight fight we don't stand a chance, then we don't fight. Straight, said Dr. Wells, who had joined the meeting by video link from Earth. The refugees have abilities the Council doesn't expect. Maybe we can use that. Lieutenant Amy Foster, now promoted to Chief Science Officer, had been working with the refugee engineers. The Zapirians can manipulate any liquid, including the coolant systems in Council ships. The Lumrians can overload energy systems or redirect power. The Vorin collective can hack into any computer network, and the Kiddick can adapt and repair our ships faster than the enemy can damage them. Morrison felt hope starting to grow. What about our refugee civilians? We can't ask them to fight. A new voice spoke from the corner of the room. It was flowing like rivers. The Zeharan, who had been working on Mars. Captain Morrison, your species saved us when no one else would. You gave us homes when the galaxy said we were worthless. We will fight beside you, not because you ask us to, but because Earth has become our home too. Similar declarations came from representatives of each refugee species. They had found something on Earth that they had lost when the Council expelled them. They had found a place where they belonged. Morrison stood up and looked around the room at humans and aliens working together. 6 months ago he had been a simple exploration captain. Now he was about to lead the most diverse fleet in galactic history against impossible odds. All right then, he said, let's show the Council what happens when you mess with our family. Outside the station's windows, Earth turned slowly in space, its blue oceans reflecting the light of the sun. On its surface, refugee children who had never expected to have a home were playing with human friends who had never met an alien before. In orbit, ships from dozens of different species were being retrofitted with hybrid technologies that no one had imagined possible. Galactic Council was coming to destroy this experiment in cooperation and acceptance. They believed that diversity was weakness, that difference was dangerous. They were about to learn that they were very, very wrong. Fleet Admiral Kate Rogers stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship Defender, watching the Council armada approach through the darkness of space. 500 enemy ships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the symbols of 12 different species that served the Galactic Council. At the center of the fleet was the massive command ship Dominator, twice the size of any human vessel. Kate had been promoted just 2 weeks ago when the previous admiral refused to fight against such overwhelming odds, but Kate understood something her predecessor didn't. This wasn't just about military strategy, this was about proving that different species could work together better than anyone thought possible. Admiral called her communications officer. We're receiving a transmission from the enemy fleet. Put it on screen. The face that appeared was unlike anything Kate had seen before. Warm. Master Cyclone belonged to a species called the Devastors, bred specifically for war by the Council. His skin looked like black metal, and his eyes glowed red with built-in targeting systems. Human Admiral, I am War Master Teclon. You will surrender immediately and hand over all refugee species for proper disposal. You have 1 hour to comply, or we will demonstrate why the Council's rule is absolute. Kate kept her voice steady. Warm Master, these people are under Earth's protection. We won't abandon them. Theon's metallic face showed what might have been amusement. Your primitive fleet cannot stand against Council might. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed species that were far more advanced than yours. Surrender now and your world will be spared. I have a counter-offer, Kate said. Leave our system now and we won't have to embarrass you in front of your Council masters. The transmission cut off abruptly. Kate turned to her tactical officer, Commander Roy Adams. How long until they reach firing range? 30 minutes, Admiral. All ships are in position. Kate nodded. Earth's 80 ships were spread throughout the solar system, hiding behind asteroids and moons. It looked like they were trying to avoid a direct fight, but that was exactly what Kate wanted the enemy to think. On the bridge of the New Horizon, Captain Morrison prepared his ship for the most important battle of his life. His crew was a mix of humans and refugees who had volunteered to fight. Amy Foster worked at her science station, coordinating with Zapirian water shapers who could manipulate the liquid systems of enemy ships. Nearby, a Lumerian named Crystal Song Brightite pulsed with inner light as it prepared to channel energy through the ships. Weapons, Captain Amy reported. The refugee ships are ready. The Chittick hives have reinforced our hulls with living armor that can repair itself. The Vorin Collective is linked to all our computers, giving us real-time tactical awareness that the enemy can't match. Morrison smiled grimly. And our secret weapon, Dr. Carter's transmission, is ready to broadcast on all frequencies. If this works, we'll reach every oppressed population in Council space. Across the solar system, Dr. Lisa Carter sat in a broadcasting studio on Earth, surrounded by representatives from each refugee species. Her message was simple, but powerful. She would show the galaxy what cooperation and acceptance could accomplish. People of the galaxy, she began, looking directly into the camera. 6 months ago, Earth opened its doors to species that the Galactic Council had thrown away. Today I want to show you what we've built together. The broadcast switched to images of Mars, where green valleys now stretch across what had been barren desert. Zephyrin children played in crystal clear our streams, while human and alien families worked together in living buildings that grew like Plants but were stronger than steel. The council told you these species were worthless, Carter continued, they said. The Zapirians were primitive because they lived in harmony with nature, instead of destroying it, but look what they've helped us create. They said the Lumrians were inefficient because they stored energy in crystals instead of burning fuel, but their power systems produced no pollution and never run out. On distant council worlds, beings who had lived their entire lives under rigid control watched in amazement. They saw Chitik hives creating structures that healed themselves, Vorthon Collective, solving problems that had puzzled scientists for generations, and humans working alongside all of them as equals. The battle began suddenly. Council ships dropped out of faster than light travel and immediately opened fire on the nearest human vessels, but the Earth ships didn't fight the way the Council expected. Admiral Rogers coordinated the defense from her flagship, but every ship captain could think and react instantly thanks to the Vorthon Collective linking their minds. When Council ships tried to jam their communications, the link continued through quantum connections that the enemy couldn't understand. Captain Morrison led his squadron in a desperate charge toward the enemy command ship. Council vessels fired energy beams that should have destroyed the human ships instantly, but Lumrian beings aboard each vessel absorbed the energy and redirected it back at their attackers. Impossible, Warm Master Theclon growled as he watched human ships survive direct hits from his most powerful weapons. How are they still functional? His science officer, a nervous creature with 6 arms, checked his instruments frantically. Sir, their ships appear to be healing themselves, and their energy weapons are using our own power against us. On Morrison's ship, the Chitik engineer called builds with Livingstone worked frantically to repair damage. Even as it occurred, the insect-like being hands moved in complex patterns, guiding the living metal of the hull to seal breaches and strengthen weak points. Hull integrity restored, Captain Amy reported. The Chitik repairs are holding perfectly, but the real surprise came when the Council ships tried to board disabled human vessels. Zephyrin defenders moved through the ship's water systems like ghosts, appearing suddenly to disable enemy soldiers without killing them. They simply put the attackers to sleep by adjusting the oxygen levels in their breathing systems. The tide of battle turned when Morrison's strike force reached the enemy command ship. As planned, they didn't try to destroy it. Instead, wind through stars and the other Vorthon Collective members flowed through the Dominator's ventilation systems and linked directly with the ship's computers. In seconds, the Collective had access to the Council's entire military database. What they found was even worse than the refugees had suspected. Admiral Rogers Morrison called over the communication system. The Vorin have found something. The Council has been planning to exterminate every species they can't control. Earth was just the beginning. They want to reduce galactic diversity to only 5 species that they can easily dominate. Kate felt cold anger flow through her. The Council wasn't just maintaining order, they were committing genocide on a galactic scale. Dr. Carter's broadcast was still reaching across the galaxy, but now it included the stolen Council files. Beings on hundreds of worlds saw proof that their rulers had been lying to them. For thousands of years, the inefficient and primitive species that had been Expelled weren't threats to galactic stability, they were threats to Council power on the Council world of Nexus Prime. Riots began in the capital city as citizens learned the truth. Similar uprisings started on 17 other worlds as populations realized they had been living under a system designed to eliminate anyone who was different. The space battle reached its climax when War Master Raster Theclon, desperate to salvage the situation, ordered his ships to target Earth directly. If he couldn't defeat the human fleet, he would destroy their planet and make an example that would terrorize the galaxy back into submission. Morrison saw the enemy ships turning toward Earth and knew his small force couldn't stop them all. That's when the refugees made a decision that would be remembered throughout galactic history. The Nidic Hive Queen, ancient wisdom flowing, had been coordinating repairs across the entire human fleet. She was the oldest and wisest of her species, and she had lived through the Council's original purges centuries ago. As enemy ships prepared to fire on Earth, she made the ultimate sacrifice. Ancient wisdom flowing linked her consciousness with every Kiddick in the human fleet and channeled all of their life energy into a single psychic pulse. The wave of pure thought and emotion swept across space, carrying a simple message that every intelligent being in the solar system could understand. Humanity showed us we belonged. The psychic pulse struck the Council fleet like a physical blow, for the first time in their lives, the enslaved species serving the Council felt what it was like to be truly accepted and valued. The Devastator soldiers, bred for war but never allowed to think for themselves, suddenly understood that there was another way to live. Ship after ship in the Council fleet stopped firing. Crews began to rebel against their commanders as the truth of what they had been fighting for became clear. The rigid discipline that had held the Council forces together crumbled as soldiers realized they were fighting to preserve a system that would eventually destroy them too. Warm Master Thelen watched in horror as his own ship's crew turned against him. His final transmission to the Council leadership was filled with panic. Humans have weaponized hope itself. They're not just defeating us militarily, they're converting our own forces. The refugees aren't weak. They're making everyone around them stronger. 2 years had passed since the Battle of Sol, and the galaxy was changing in ways no one had expected. President Helen Murphy stood before the largest gathering of alien species in Earth's history, looking out at delegates from over 60 different worlds. The old United Nations building in New York had been expanded 3 times to hold them all. 2 years ago we were a small planet hiding at the edge of known space, President Murphy said. Today we are the capital of the coalition of the welcomed, representing species from across the galaxy who believe that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. In the audience, beings that looked nothing like each other applauded in their own ways. Some clapped with hands, others made musical sounds, and a few glowed brighter with inner light, but they all shared something important. They had all been rejected by the old Galactic Council and found a new home with humanity. Ambassador Susan Wells, now Earth's representative to the coalition, watched with pride as new members were welcomed into their growing alliance. Each species brought unique gifts that helped everyone. Singing people of harmony could heal mental trauma with their music. The rock shapers of granite could build cities That lasted forever. The dream were weavers. Could help solve problems by exploring ideas and shared visions, but not everyone in the galaxy was happy about these changes. In a hidden base on the edge of council space, the surviving leaders of the old government held an emergency meeting. Supreme Leader Draxmore, who had taken power after the previous council fell, slammed his armored fist on the conference table. This human infection is spreading too fast, he growled. 47 worlds have already joined their coalition. Our member species are asking questions about our authority. Some are even demanding representation in our government. Military Commander Vexar, one of the few Devastator officers who had remained loyal during the Battle of Sol, studied tactical displays showing coalition growth. Supreme Leader, if we don't act soon, we'll lose control completely. The humans have proven that rejected species can become powerful when they work together. That threatens everything we've built. Draxmore nodded grimly. Then we end this before it goes any further. Prepare the final fleet. Every ship we have, every loyal species, every weapon in our arsenal. We will crush Earth and its coalition once and for all. Meanwhile on Earth, General Carl Anderson was dealing with a different kind of problem. The former executive officer under Captain Morrison now commanded the coalition's joint military forces, but his ships were spread across dozens of star systems, protecting new member worlds from council attacks. We're stretched too thin, he told Admiral Rogers during their weekly strategy meeting. Intelligence reports say the council is building a massive fleet. If they attack in full force, we won't be able to defend Earth and our allies at the same time. Admiral Rogers nodded as she studied the star charts. What's our current strength? 300 ships total, but they're scattered across 60 systems. The council probably has twice that number, and they're all concentrated in one area. Dr. Rachel Torres, the quantum physicist who had been studying the ancient archives found on Titan, looked up from her research notes. There might be another option. The old records mention something called Haven. According to the texts, it's a place where the galaxy's first spacefaring species stored their knowledge and culture. General Anderson frowned. You mean like a library? More than that, the records suggest it's an entire pocket dimension created by beings who transcended physical existence thousands of years ago. They called themselves the Haven Guardians. Legend says they would only reveal themselves to a species worthy of inheriting the galaxy's true legacy. Admiral Rogers leaned forward with interest. What would make a species worthy? According to the texts, not conquest or superior technology, but the wisdom to protect and nurture diversity. The Guardians believed that the galaxy's strength came from having many different kinds of life, not from having everything controlled by one group. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison was having his own revelation, now commanding the flagship Harmony. He had been investigating reports of strange energy readings near the Andromeda Gateway, a region of space that most species avoided because of dangerous gravitational anomalies. Captain called his science officer, Dr. Kim Parker. I'm reading quantum fluctuations unlike anything we've seen before. It's like space itself is folded. Here, Morrison studied the readings with growing excitement. Amy, remember what Dr. Torres told us about Haven, about it existing outside Normal space. Lieutenant Foster, now serving as his first officer, checked her instruments. Sir, the energy patterns match some of the descriptions in the Titan archives. If Haven is real, this could be the way to reach it, but their exploration was interrupted by an urgent message from Earth. The Council's final fleet had been detected moving toward Coalition space, over 1,000 ships under Supreme Leader Draxmore's personal command were coming to end the rebellion. Once and for all, President Murphy called an emergency session of the Coalition Assembly. Representatives from 60 worlds gathered to hear the grim news. The Council fleet will reach Earth in 30 days, she announced. They have 3 ships for every one of ours, but we've faced impossible odds before and we've survived by working together. A delegate from the Crystal Singers, a species that communicated through light patterns, flashed a complex message. The translation appeared on screens around the room. Our people remember the old stories. Before the Council there were guardians who watched over all life. Perhaps it is time to seek their guidance. Similar suggestions came from other ancient species. The more the Coalition delegates talked, the more it became clear that many cultures had legends about the Haven Guardians. All the stories agreed on one thing: the Guardians would only help those who proved themselves worthy through their actions, not their words. Dr. Torres worked frantically to decode more of the Titan archives with help from Voron, collective intelligence, and Lumrian energy pattern analysis. She began to understand how to open a gateway to Haven, but the process required something unprecedented: the combined psychic energy of multiple species working in perfect harmony. As the Council fleet drew closer, Coalition ships began gathering around Earth. But instead of preparing for battle, they were attempting something that had never been tried before. Ships from 60 different species arranged themselves in a complex pattern around the Andromeda Gateway, following instructions found in the ancient archives. General Anderson commanded the operation from his flagship, but the real coordination came from an unlikely source: the surviving Chittick hives. Inspired by ancient wisdom flowing, Sacrifice had learned to link not just with their own species, but with any intelligent being willing to open mind to the connection. All ships report ready, Anderson announced. Dr. Torres, are you certain this will work? The scientist's voice carried uncertainty and hope in equal measure. The theory is sound, General, but we're trying to contact beings that transcended physical existence millennia ago. I have no idea what we'll find on the other side. Captain Morrison's ship was at the center of the formation. As the psychic link formed between all Coalition vessels, he felt the minds of thousands of beings joining together: humans, Zephyrians, Lumrians, Forthon, Chedic, and dozens of other species shared their thoughts and emotions in a way that should have been chaotic, but instead felt perfectly natural. The combined mental energy of the Coalition fleet focused on a single point in space where Dr. Torres' calculation said the gateway to Haven would open. Reality seemed to bend and twist, and suddenly there was a hole in space that led somewhere impossible. Through the gateway they could see a realm that defied description. It wasn't a planet or a star system, but an entire dimension where thought and matter existed in perfect harmony, and waiting for them were beings of pure energy that had once been flesh and Blood like themselves, the Haven Guardians had been watching the galaxy for thousands of years, waiting for a species to prove itself worthy. They had seen the councils rise to power and the systematic elimination of diversity that followed. They had watched species after species fall to the rigid conformity that the council demanded, but they had also seen humanity's choice to embrace the rejected and cast out. They had witnessed the coalition's growth and the way different species helped each other become stronger. Most importantly, they had felt ancient wisdom flowing's final psychic pulse and understood its meaning. One of the guardians, a being of swirling light that called itself first among equals, spoke directly into the minds of every coalition member. For 10,000 years, we have waited for a species to prove that diversity is strength, that cooperation is more powerful than domination. You have shown us that such wisdom exists. The test is complete, but their celebration was interrupted by alarms throughout the fleet. The council's final fleet had arrived early, dropping out of faster than light travel at the edge of the solar system. Supreme Leader Draxmore had brought everything he had, over 1,000 ships crewed by the most fanatically loyal species in his empire. His message broadcast across all frequencies was simple and terrifying. This ends now. Today we destroy the coalition and restore proper order to the galaxy. The space around Earth had never seen a battle like this one. Over 1,000 council ships faced 300 coalition vessels in what would decide the future of the galaxy. Supreme Leader Draxmore commanded from his massive flagship Eternal Order, a ship built specifically to destroy entire planets. Today we end this rebellion, Draxmore announced to his fleet. Today we show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the natural order. Begin the attack. Admiral Kate Rogers watched from the coalition flagship Harmony as enemy ships opened fire. The first wave of energy beams lit up space like deadly fireworks. But something unexpected happened. Instead of trying to dodge or return fire, the coalition ships moved into a complex formation that seemed to dance between the attacks. All ships maintain the pattern, Rogers ordered. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for every species that was ever told they didn't belong. Captain Morrison coordinated the defense from his position at the center of the formation. Around him, beings from 60 different species worked together with a harmony that defied explanation. The Chittick hives had linked everyone's minds, creating a shared consciousness that moved like a single organism made of hundreds of separate parts. Through this link, Morrison felt the determination of every coalition member. He felt the Zephyrians' quiet strength as they prepared to heal any damaged ships. He felt the Lumrians' brilliant energy as they charged the fleet weapons. He felt the Vorin collective's vast intelligence calculating thousands of tactical possibilities at once. But most of all, he felt something that the Council had never understood: hope. The Council's first attack should have destroyed dozens of coalition ships. Instead, the strange formation allowed them to share damage across the entire fleet. When one ship was hit, other absorbed part of the impact. When energy weapons struck Lumrian vessels, they converted the attack into power for their neighbors. When Council boarding parties tried to take disabled ships, defenders flowed through the water systems to stop them without violence. Supreme Leader Draxmore watched in growing frustration as his overwhelming advantage seemed to mean nothing. How are they still fighting? We outnumber them 3-1, his science advisor, a nervous creature with multiple eyes, studied the tactical displays. Sir, they're sharing everything, damage, power, even information. It's like fighting a single organism instead of separate ships. Then we destroy them all at once. Draxmore snarled, prepare the planet killer weapon. We'll vaporize Earth and end this. But as the Council's most powerful weapon charged up, something incredible happened. The gateway to Haven, which had remained open during the battle, began to pulse with new energy. The Haven Guardians, beings of pure thought who had transcended physical existence thousands of years ago, emerged into normal space. First among equals, spoke into the minds of every being in the solar system. For 10 millennia, we have watched this galaxy tear itself apart in the name of order and efficiency. We have seen species destroyed not for being evil, but for being different. Today that ends. The Haven Guardians didn't attack the Council ships. Instead, they did something more powerful. They shared their memories with every intelligent being in both fleets. Suddenly, Council soldiers and officers experienced the galaxy's true history. They saw how the Council had risen to power by eliminating diversity. They felt the pain of species that had been destroyed simply for thinking differently. They witnessed the joy that came from cooperation instead of domination. But Draxmore, consumed by his need for control, refused to accept what he was seeing. Lies, he screamed. The Council brings order to chaos. We make the galaxy efficient. He fired the planet killer weapon directly at Earth. Captain Morrison saw the massive energy beam racing toward his home planet and knew that no defense could stop it. In that moment, he made the same choice that ancient wisdom flowing had made during the Battle of Saul. He opened his mind completely to the coalition link and channeled every bit of love and determination he felt for the diverse family they had built together. But Morrison wasn't alone. Every human in the fleet joined him, and then every refugee species, and then something amazing happened. The Council soldiers who had experienced the Guardians' memories began to join the link as well. Species that had served the Council out of fear suddenly felt what it was like to be truly accepted and valued. The combined psychic energy of thousands of beings, human and alien alike, formed a barrier around Earth. The planet killer beam struck this shield of pure emotion and love, and instead of destroying the planet, it was absorbed and transformed into something beautiful. The deadly energy became a wave of healing light that spread across the solar system, repairing damaged ships and bringing new life to dead asteroids. Supreme Leader Draxmore watched in horror as his own fleet turned against him. Ship after ship switched sides as crews experienced what the coalition offered, not domination or fear, but belonging and acceptance. This is impossible, he whispered. Order must be maintained. Efficiency must be preserved. First among equals appeared before him is a figure of gentle light. True order comes from harmony, not control. True efficiency comes from using every being's unique gifts, not from making everyone the same. You have spent so long fearing diversity that you forgot it was the source of all strength. Draxmore's final act was to try to destroy his own flagship rather than surrender, but his crew stopped him. They had felt what it was like to be part of something greater than themselves, and they refused to go back to the old ways. The battle was over, but the real victory was just beginning. 6 months later, Dr. Lisa Carter stood before the first session of the Galactic Haven Republic. The old council chambers had been transformed into a place where representatives from over 300 species could meet as equals. Some delegates sat in chairs, others floated in tanks of special gas, and a few existed as patterns of living, but they all had the same rights and the same voice in their shared government. When Earth first opened its arms to rejected refugees, we never imagined it would lead to this, Carter said as she accepted the role of the Republic's first chancellor. We simply did what felt right. We helped people who needed help. We welcomed those who had nowhere else to go. She paused, looking out at the incredible diversity before her, but in doing so, we discovered something wonderful. Every species, no matter how different, has something valuable to contribute. The Zapirians taught us that technology doesn't have to destroy nature. The Lumrians showed us that energy can be stored and shared instead of hoarded. The Varan Collective proved that thinking together makes everyone smarter. The Kiddick demonstrated that buildings can be alive and growing. In the audience, Captain Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, smiled as he listened. Beside him sat representatives from dozens of species that had once been considered outcasts and misfits. They had become the leaders of a new kind of galactic civilization. Carter continued her speech. The old council believed that diversity was weakness, that differences were dangerous. They were wrong. Our diversity is our strength. Our differences make us creative, adaptable, and strong. When we embrace those who are different from us, we don't lose anything, we gain everything. The applause that followed came in dozens of different forms. Some beings clapped, others sang, still others glowed brighter or released clouds of pleasant-smelling gas. It was chaotic and messy and absolutely beautiful. Later that day, Morrison walked through the corridors of Haven Station, the Republic's new capital. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Chittick living walls provided structure while breathing fresh air. Zaffiran water systems flowed through Lumerian crystal channels that provided light and power. Vorhin consciousness networks allowed instant communication across the entire structure. Human children ran through the halls playing with alien friends, their laughter mixing with the music of young singers and the happy buzzing of Chiik youngsters. They were growing up in a galaxy where being different wasn't something to fear or hide, but something to celebrate. As Morrison reached his quarters, he found a message waiting from Earth. It was from his daughter, now 15 and studying xenobiology at the new Interesi's University. Dad, her message said, my teacher today was a Zaphirian who survived the refugee camps. She told us about the day you found them at Kepler Station. She said you saved her people, but I think she's wrong. I think they saved us too. They saved us from becoming the kind of species that turns its back on people who need help. Morrison smiled and looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, new species were just beginning to explore space. Some of them would be strange and different in ways no one had imagined yet. When they arrived at the borders of Republic space, they would find something that the galaxy had almost forgotten, a place where being Different wasn't a reason for rejection, but a reason for celebration. The galaxy had rejected them, but humanity had opened its arms. In doing so, they had opened the door to a future where every voice could be heard, every gift could be shared, and every being could find a place where they belonged. That was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, not superior technology or military might.